In this video, we're going to learn how to break glass for stained glass windows. In an earlier video I introduced something called the Flower Project, which is the first project that my students do. And in this project, we have a pre-made design. So if you didn't have a pre-made design, you'll want to design your stained glass piece first and number every single piece, which has already been done for the students. And we call this our master copy. And we want to hold on to this because this is what we're going to fit our pieces to eventually. In an earlier video also, I took our glossy paper to make the pattern. So I've cut out my pattern pieces, and here they are, all numbered exactly how my master copy is numbered. And then the next thing students do is they get glass, or if you're at home making your own design, this is when you want to get your glass. Now, I know some stained glass artists that just use a light table to put their glass on top of the pattern and trace it, and that is fine. But since I have about 20 to 30 students and 2 light tables, that doesn't really work out, so we make pattern pieces. You may find that you prefer to use a light table, or some people just prefer to use the pattern pieces. Personally, I prefer to use the pattern pieces because I feel like they're more exact than when I try to trace them over the light table. So the next thing that you would do is you would find out which pieces you're going to have what color, and then you would lay down the glass and rubber cement your pieces on. So you would use rubber cement to get these pieces onto your glass. And what I always encourage students to do, and this would help you too if you're doing this at home, is to conserve as much glass as possible. So this piece, I'm giving it quite a bit of space just because I'm going to do the demo with this piece. But with the rest of my pieces, what I would want to do is I would want to take it all the way to the edge. And I would want my glass to butt up as much as it could, because anything that butts up to the edge, then I don't actually have to cut that piece. It's already cut for me. So if I have any pieces like this, I might want to take them all the way to the flat edge. And what I do is I would just line up all my pieces on the edge, make sure that there's room that I can cut them apart, and you don't need very much room. And if I have any sharp points or curves, I want to give them a little bit of space, a little bit of extra glass. So I just take these and line these up. And it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. You might sit here for a while, kind of shifting things around. And with all of my first year students, I teach multi-level class. With all my first year students, I do this for them and have them watch. And then if they feel comfortable with doing it, eventually I might let them do that, but what you'll find is they'll probably use a piece of glass and just kind of spread it out and waste a bunch of glass. So you really have to watch so that doesn't happen, because once you get into this, you'll realize how expensive everything is. I'm using clear glass for this demo so you can see what I write on the glass. I'm going to take these off for the demo. But I glued this piece on earlier, and the reason why I chose to glue on this piece is because it has a lot of obstacles that we come across while breaking glass. So since I glued this on a while ago, I'm going to want to get the rubber cement off if it's on the edges, because that's going to gum up my glass cutter. So I'm just going around here and making sure that there isn't any rubber cement on it, and it'll kind of roll off of there. And the next thing I want to do, since this is such a large piece of glass, I want to get the size down. So when I introduce the tools, this is where we'd use a pair of running pliers, because I'm going to make a long, straight, or mostly straight line. This pair of running pliers doesn't have any grips on it, so you can use tape if your grips wear out. These usually come with little rubber grips, and there's a hash line where you're going to line up the score line, so you want to make sure you know where that is. So I've just marked it here with a Sharpie so I know where it is, because these two sides are different. Your hash line is always going to be pointing up. So these are running pliers. We're going to use them in just a second. So again, I'm going to take my glass cutter, just review how to hold it properly. So I want the nail or the screw to be facing up or out, away from your body. And I hold it initially like a pencil and then just turn this up so it's at a 90-degree angle with the table. Another alternate way you might see it held is like this. It's kind of hard to see. Some people hold it like this. I think it's hard to see where the wheel is going. Excuse me. So I tend to do the pencil and straighten it out like this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim some of this glass off. So I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to cut from edge to edge, pretty close to this piece. But since this is a sharp point, I'm going to leave some space, just a little bit of space. So you're going to hopefully hear the score line here. So from edge to edge, start at one edge, go all the way to another edge, and I bump into my thumb. I stop the cutter with my thumb, so I don't want to run it off to the table. And what I might want to do here is just take the back of the cutter and give it a few light taps. Those taps are going to just take that fracture and just make it break a little bit further. So some people are okay with breaking this with their hands. You can do it with your hands, but I'm going to show you how to do it with the running pliers. So I'm going to take the running pliers, make sure that the hash mark is facing up. I'm going to line it up with my score line where I ended the line, and I'm just going to press very lightly and down and pull down, and now it's separated from the bigger chunk. The next thing I want to do is I still want to reduce the size of the scrap around my piece. Now, I tell my students to cut the most difficult piece first. And in this case, if I stand this up, the most difficult piece is going to be a concave curve or a sharp point. That way, if you mess it up in the beginning, then you don't have to worry about it and just start over. And don't cut all the easy parts first and then come to the most difficult thing and then screw it up, because then you just wasted a whole bunch of time. So if you cut your hardest thing first, then you can move on, because there's probably a chance that this is going to be a lot easier. And this is all the way up to the edge of the glass, so I don't even have to cut this. So I need to get as close to the paper as possible. I'm going to still reduce my scrap size, so I'm going to take another straight line just to reduce the scrap on this edge. So I'm just doing a straight line here. It didn't break, so I'm going to try to tap it and see if that helps. And it did. So it went ahead and it broke that time, which is good. All right, so we're still in good shape here. We have some scrap here at the top, and I'm going to take care of that at the end. But I really want to take care of this because this is my sharp curve. Now, something to keep in mind, if your scrap is bigger than your piece, so if what you're trying to get rid of is bigger than the piece you want to save, there's a chance it could shatter the piece you want to save. So you always want to get your scrap down to a point where it's smaller than what you want to save. So if a curve is really deep like this, I probably can't do it in one break. So I do something called the balloon method. And I'll draw lines on the glass so you can see what I mean. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the scrap off with a straight line, but I'm going to leave about this much space for the tip. Because even if I cut this perfectly and break it perfectly, chances are if there's a real tiny tip here, that it's going to end up breaking a little bit higher than that. So I always want to overcompensate and leave extra. So I'm going to take that straight line and leave space for that tip. Tap it a little bit, and here I can still use my running pliers, so I'm going to line that hash mark up. And that just broke very easily apart. And now I have kind of a deep curve here, so I'm going to start a second video here. So this is going to be part 2, and we're going to get into this steep curve and finishing up the rest of the cutting.